Okay, I think with that, do we want, actually, Erin, you want to end the poll so we can see? Great. So we have one person that's ready to get a solar system ASAP. So I think maybe we can have a goal, Ryan, by the end of this webinar. Maybe we can relaunch the poll, see if we can get a few more into the I want to get a solar system as soon as possible. Couple more looking at later this year, some next year, and then just a lot of folks who are here to get information, which is great. Okay. Welcome everyone to our Solarize information session. My name is Bree West. I'm the Director of Communications and Outreach for the Piedmont Environmental Council. For folks who haven't heard of us, PEC is a nonprofit organization that's been around for about 50 years, working to protect and promote the natural resources, rural economy, history, and beauty of the Virginia Piedmont. We're active in a region that spans from Clark and Loudoun County in the north, all the way down to Charlottesville and Albemarle. And energy is kind of, it's a passion of mine. I'm the Solarize point person. It's a core part of PEC's mission. It's trying to think of how best to describe it. We've been in some fights over the years over energy infrastructure. We've also always been passionate about clean air and clean water. And so distributed renewable generation is a big part of the solution. So that's why we're here today. And I'm joined by my colleague, Ryan Van Patten of the Local Energy Alliance program. Ryan's their solar manager. And Ryan, can you just give us a little brief window into who and what LEAP is?
Yeah, thank you. So again, my name is Ryan. Yeah, so the Local Energy Alliance program, or LEAP for short, most people call it LEAP. We got started actually just over 10 years ago now, and the main goal for us was to implement energy efficiency modifications to whether it's residential or even some commercial buildings too, just to make them overall more energy efficient. And then I guess about 3 or 4 years after we got started, we actually put on our first Solarize Charlottesville campaign, which was super successful with over 100 installations going through that campaign. And so we've done at least one campaign each year since then. And again, partnering with Piedmont Environmental Council has been really, really helpful throughout the years.
Awesome. And then let's see, today we're also lucky to have with us I'm hoping, actually, I'm not sure I saw Tim join yet, but hopefully he's there. I definitely saw Sam from Nova Solar, but we'll have Sunday Solar here as well. We have these installers who can help answer some of the more technical questions, hopefully. So that's another thing to look forward to. And I found in our past Solarize information sessions, the sooner we can get to that Q&A, the better, so that we can kind of turn it over to the experts to answer some of those questions. Just a little bit about the game plan for today's webinar. We're doing these kind of brief welcome and introductions, and I'm going to turn it over to Ryan pretty quickly to go over some solar basics, Solarize basics as well. Hopefully there were some questions submitted in advance, and hopefully we'll actually knock out answering some of those up front. And then again, we'll get into that Q&A, and folks, you're welcome to ask questions. You can come onto video, or you can just chat things into the chat, and I'll kind of aggregate and collect those and try to tackle them one by one. And anything that we mentioned today in terms of resources, we'll try to collect together to send out as a follow-up email and also to post on our website. So don't worry about taking notes on specific links or pages to go visit. We'll make sure to send that out after the fact. Okay. First off, I just start with an easy one, which is, what is Solarize Piedmont? It's an initiative that we're obviously PEC and LEAP have teamed up together on. It's a campaign, and it's all about demystifying the process of going solar. So over the years, a lot of what we've heard from people is a readiness and interest in going solar, and then there's kind of this apprehension about, well, but I don't know if I'm going to get the right installer, or how do I know if I'm getting a good price, or I've got some questions and I don't really want to talk to a salesperson. You know, I really just want someone to kind of help me through this process. And there's enough questions that it ends with someone not going ahead and getting that solar system. So part of what this campaign is about is just trying to make that process a little bit easier. The next question though is like, but okay, that's fine. That's a process answer. But what's the real benefit of it? And I think the benefit comes in there are vetted installers, and there's pricing that's transparent, and it's negotiated up front. So basically each year, the folks at LEAP, it's really Ryan, issues a request for proposal. There's a bid process, and installers who've basically said they're interested in participating in this bid process, they get that RFP and they put together a bid. And so you've got a number of installers kind of bidding against each other. And that bidding process tends to do a couple things. One, you're going to get vetted contractors. So these are contractors with pretty good reputations, and those are reputations that we can check. And then because they're bidding against each other, they kind of tend to come in with a price that's a little bit below the retail rate. And they do that because it's a time-limited campaign, just a few months. And they know, again, that they're going to get those sales leads out of this process. So that's kind of what's in it for the installer. But that ends up really helping out, I think, the regular resident of the area, because you can feel a little comfort that these are good installers and they're offering you a good price. And that's a price that you can actually go see posted on our website. And I think Ryan's going to take you through this year's pricing in a later slide. And then, yeah, the PEC and LEAP staff have done a lot of that homework up front, and we're here to answer your questions, basically be an ear and support you as you kind of look into getting a solar system. And so with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Ryan to talk a little bit more about, again, Solarize and solar in general. And we have one more quick poll, I think, that Aaron's going to launch while we do that transition. Yeah. Hopefully I think everybody can see that poll. I see results are starting to come in. Oh, and just as a moment of housekeeping, I've noticed that both Chris Meyer and Chris Miller, the executive director of LEAP and the president of the Piedmont Environmental Council, are also on the line. So they might be able to tackle some question and answer period themselves in the chat. So if you want to go straight to the top, they're there for you as well. Okay, and with that, Ryan, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Right. So yeah, it looks like with the poll, most people interested in some rooftop solar and a little bit with some ground mounts too. So that's great to see, and even some commercial. All right. So, you know, how does getting signed up for the program and the campaign all work? We've tried to streamline it over the years, see what worked, what didn't work, and we've tried to make it as simple as possible. So essentially all you really have to do is go to the solarizeva.org website. Also on the PEC website, they have a link to sign up as well on there. And really, you're just gonna go to solarizeva.org. Up on the menu, there's gonna be a Get Started button. So you can click on there, find your locality, and there's gonna be a button to sign up. And then the sign up form is gonna pop up for you. It's really general information, your contact information. So first, last name, telephone number, address, the property address of you know, the place that you are looking to go solar, email address, and then a couple other questions about your rooftop. Just what type of roof it is, an estimated age of it. If you don't know, don't worry. You know, there's always a I'm not too sure option that you can pick. Mainly, we're just trying to get that up front. So once the solar installer talks to you, they'll have a little bit more information on hand. So once you sign up, we'll email you within a few business days, let you know, hey, thanks for signing up. And we'll let you know what we see through various satellite images, whether your home or property looks good for solar or not. Things we're looking for, shading concerns, large trees, other buildings nearby, and then also the angles of the roof may come into play as well. So we're going to take a look at all that information and follow up with an email to you, letting you know, hey, your house looks great for solar, or unfortunately there might be some shading concerns, and here's a screenshot of what we see. We really try to attach a screenshot just to make sure that we're looking at an up-to-date photo, because a lot of times, depending on the areas of Virginia too, the maps may be 2 years old, for instance. So we'll ask you, hey, does this look up to date? And from that point, if it does look good, we'll ask you to send in a copy of an electric bill, a recent one, so that it has mostly what we're looking for is the kilowatt hours or the energy usage you use throughout the 12 months. And it's all going to be listed on that energy bill. And so once we get that in hand, we'll go ahead and let the solar installer contact you. And then they're really going to take over from there, contacting you, letting you know what's going to work on your home, giving you some options, and really essentially putting a preliminary proposal together for you to review. All right, and just talking about a little bit of results. So since we've been doing Solarize throughout the state, Northern Virginia, Central Virginia, Piedmont, since 2013, 2014, we've had over 400 contracts signed with over 4 megawatts of solar capacity, which is, quite a lot, and close to $10 million in contract value. So, it's been a really great success for, whether it's the people getting installed or even the installers, trying to keep them more local, regional contractors to try to help support that, regional economy a little bit more too. And then who can sign up? Essentially, we got a list of the campaign area here. So if you live in any of these jurisdictions, feel free to sign up. I will say if you live a little bit outside of one or the other, feel free to sign up or shoot us an email, and we can check to make sure that we can help service you through the program. Because sometimes we realize maybe one county or another might not actually be in the campaign area, but you live on the border, for example. So feel free to contact us, and we'll definitely try to help you out there. And then with energy efficiency, since that's more or less LEAP's bread and butter since the beginning, we want to make sure that every home is as efficient as possible. So we say we want to reduce your energy usage before you start producing it. So this is just a picture diagram from the Department of Energy, I believe, just showing you the red arrows are where air leaks or air is leaving the house or potentially coming into the house, along with the blue arrows as well. So this is just an example of things to seal up in a house. But I will say, since it is our bread and butter, if you're interested, depending on your electric utility, we may be able to provide you a free home energy assessment. Or reduced cost one, just depending on the utility that you actually have for your electric or gas. So I will mention to go ahead and follow up with us on that, and we can definitely get you an assessment scheduled. So just talking a little bit about the basics of solar and a solar installation. Here we just have a basic diagram. You will notice that it's turned, so you got north to the left and south to the right. This, it's turned just so you could see the pathway of the summer and the winter sun. And you can see here that the best place to place a solar array is on a south-facing roof, or if you have a ground mount option as well. But south-facing is most ideal. It's going to get the most sun throughout the year and throughout the day. However, if your roof faces a little bit off south, even east and west can work as well. We're just really trying to shy away from any north-facing roof, mainly because we live in the northern hemisphere. So, there's not going to be really any direct sunlight reaching that north-facing roof. And so that's something we're looking at when we're doing that satellite assessment for you. And then just the basics on a solar installation. So you got obviously the solar panels, which we have a diagram of one here. And you can see they've gotten, over the years, I think personally, they've gotten a lot nicer looking. We call this, black on black or triple black, just because you have black framing around it instead of silver aluminum, for example. So that's just one example of an option. But I will say the entire installation of the panels, the inverter, and all the equipment may take up to 3 or 4 days. What takes the longest usually is going through the design, permitting, and interconnection. So we do list that that may take up to 6 to 12 weeks, or just really depends on the jurisdiction and the design process and everything like that. So the sooner you can, if you really do want to go solar this year, the sooner the better to sign a contract so you can kind of get through all that and get it installed by the end of the year. So besides the solar panel itself, or module, we'll call it too sometimes, is the balance of system, which is the other hardware, which includes the inverter, the cables, the meters, everything else associated with the system itself. And so here, here's just a couple pictures of different types of racking hardware or mounting hardware, depending on the type of roof you might have. And once you get that mounting or racking hardware up, it doesn't take, that's usually the hardest part. Getting the panels in place is kind of, they lock them in place, hook them up, and, you're well on your way to producing clean energy. So here, so the inverter, the other piece of equipment besides the panels, other, main component, at least in the system, is what we call the inverter. So there are a few different options here. There is a string inverter, which is a larger box that would be placed somewhere near your meter. And that would be tying all your electrical panels strung together into the string inverter. There are other options, which are micro inverters or DC optimizers, which work a little bit differently. You're going to have one of those on each panel, on each individual panel, and it's going to invert or optimize the power output per panel. Versus the string inverter is going to be the entire system altogether. And so why you might want to go with one versus the other is if you do have some shading concerns, for example, one tree maybe has a moving shadow across your roof space. In the morning, it might cover one panel, but in the afternoon, it might cover a different panel. But throughout the day, it does move. So that might be a situation where a microinverter or an optimizer might work a little bit better because it's going to optimize the production output per panel versus per system. And vice versa with a string inverter, if you did have shade on one panel, it could bring down the overall production of the entire system. So I will say, I really rely on the solar installer to really give a recommendation on which one works over, better over the other one, since they're going to be doing the shading analysis if there is any shade, and they'll kind of let you know which one works a little bit better. There's the string inverter photo there. And so once you put all the components together, like I said, mostly the modules or the array of panels and the inverter are the two main ones. So here you got a diagram just kind of showing you the flow of electricity or electrons. So you got the sun shining down on the array. It's going to knock those electrons off, creating the electricity going through the inverter. So the inverter is going to convert that DC power electricity that the panels create into AC electricity so that your house can actually use it. And then it's going to have some safety switches in case you have a sun or a storm that might knock down the power. For example, we don't want any power going onto the grid when they're working on it, just for the safety of the workers. So there's going to be some safety disconnects. It's going to go into the main electric panel, and then if you're using electricity at the time, it's going to be used right away. However, if you're not home, you're on a really sunny day, any surplus of energy that you're generating is going to go back out through the electric meter and onto the grid, which goes right into the next slide. All the systems that we're helping through Solarize are going to be called net metered. And so what that means is you're going to kind of use the grid as a backup, and you're only going to be paying the grid for grid power. You're only going to pay the net of what you're pulling off of the grid. So I just run through this quick diagram. This actually comes from Dominion Energy itself. It's a, you can see here the solar array is generating 1,100 kilowatt hours. However, the house is only using 1,000. So you have that extra 100 kilowatt hours that's going to go back through the meter onto the grid, and the grid's going to give you a credit so that you can pull 100 kilowatt hours at a later date, whether it's that evening when the sun goes down, the next week, the next, in the wintertime, for example. So that way you can bank those credits on those days that's really sunny. You might not be home as long, for example, in the summertime, and then you're going to be able to pull from those credits without having to pay for that electricity. So it's a great way to use the grid as your backup instead of getting a battery. But I will mention battery storage is an option. So we can always touch on that, but the solar installers do offer battery storage as an option. We just don't price it through our campaign. So the next slide, tax credits. This is the big incentive in Virginia besides the Solarize discount that we're able to achieve. The federal tax credit is 26% of the total installation cost associated with your solar install. And so it is a credit, not a direct rebate. So you will have to owe the federal government taxes before you can get that credited. But if you're not able to take it the first year, you can roll it over. So I will mention this is the big federal tax credit. It will go down to 22% starting next year. And then so far, the year after that in 2022, it's set to go to 0 unless it's a commercial installation. And then here, just a slide on all the price points. You can see a lot of prices are fairly similar. I'll just run through real quick, but again, it's all on the solarizeva.org website. So we got roof mounted versus ground mounted systems. And then as you get to a bigger system, the price point is going to go down a little bit. So that's going across the top there. And then going down, we've got what we call a standard panel with a string inverter. Standard panel is just a standard panel. And a lot of times it is made overseas somewhere. And then we do have a Buy America compliant panel. So that's going to be a US made panel. And so you can see it is a little more expensive, but it's supporting the solar industry in the United States. So it is going to be a little bit more, but you can see here that the string inverter versus the DC optimizer or microinverters, they're going to be the same price. So again, kind of going back to that, relying on the solar installer to really suggest which one is going to work better for your situation. And then just highlighting, I pulled this just about a week ago. State average, according to solarestimate.org, is about $3.11 per watt. And so how you would price, if you had say a 6 kW or a 6 kilowatt system, standard panel, you would multiply that $2.55 times 6,000. And that would be the total installation cost before the tax credit. And then, kind of mentioning that already, but this next slide just kind of gives you two breakdowns, a small system versus kind of what we see our average size system, which is an 8 kilowatt system. So just going down the 8 kilowatt system, total install cost before the tax credit going to be just over $20,000. But then if you're able to get that full 26% tax credit, it's going to bump it down to just over $15,000. And then, the next line item is the annual kilowatt hours produced in the first year. That's how many kilowatt hours that system, that 8 kilowatt system, is going to generate in the first year. It is an estimate because, obviously we're relying on weather and everything like that. But we do use what's called it's called PV watts. It's a calculator put out by the government. So if you ever want to take a look at it, it's just PV watts. You can Google that. It'll be the first thing that comes up. And then the next line item, we put average monthly PV income in quotes, or kind of more or less what you're offsetting in electric costs, what that value of electricity you're generating costs. So on average, in the first year, monthly average is $96 is how much electricity you're generating with that 8 kilowatt system. And then the warranties involved. So whenever we go through the bidding process for the campaign, we do require that any contractor that's part of it is going to give a 10-year workmanship warranty. So that would cover in 10 years, say, and I'll say, if you have a first rainstorm, you're going to really notice any kind of leaks that you might have, because I do, that's a lot of times the biggest worry that people have is there's going to be some leaks in the roof. But you're going to notice that right away with the first big rainstorm, and that would be something that the contractor would cover under that. Other than that, there is product warranties from manufacturers for all the different products or pieces. So we got the solar panel or module. It's going to be a minimum of a 10-year manufacturer product warranty, so that covers any kind of defects of the panel itself. I will say these are minimums. Depending on the option you go with, they might be a little bit more than 10 years. The inverters, again, 10-year product warranty, and the mounting hardware also has a 10-year product warranty. And so we just want to include this guy here. I think we may have a poll to come up here on the screen for you guys too, but we always get questions about HOAs. I live in an HOA. What can I do about it, or are they going to give me an issue or anything like that? So LEAP, with the attorneys, Reisinger Gooch, put out a review of the solar law for homeowners in Virginia. It has changed recently over early 2020. There's been some changes in the positive fashion for solar. So feel free. We're going to include that link when we send out a follow-up email from the presentation. But feel free if you have any questions about solar benefits and HOAs and everything. Feel free to take a look at that. Looks like the majority of our attendants actually do not live in an HOA, but there are some that do. So that may be something you want to take a look at. Oops. All right, so just kind of giving a real life example. So one of our partners was, when we expanded up to Northern Virginia, put in a system during Solarize Leesburg in 2014. So you can see here his house, there's some panels up at the top of it. He could have fit more, but he decided this was a good amount for his situation. So just some of the details that, price he paid per watt was a lot higher back then. But you can see here that it's a 4.5 kilowatt system. He generated about 6,500 kilowatt hours in the first year, offsetting about $720 in the first full year. So he calculated, this was maybe a little bit ago, but he calculated he's going to have about a 16-year payback with a 6.25 average rate of return. Things will change with that, I will mention, just depending, because when we look at solar, it is the lifespan of the panels that a lot of these paybacks and rate of returns are calculated. So lifespan of panels are, they say, at least 25 years, put out by one of their product guarantee or their performance guarantees. So I just did want to mention that. And he offered his production per month for the first couple years here, or first, 3 years here. So you can see, obviously the sun's higher in the sky for longer during the summer months. So you can see those higher numbers in the summer months, lower numbers in the winter months, just because, the sun's not out as long and it's lower in the sky. So, and every system is going to come with a monitoring program. As long you will need internet capability in the house to access this. But this is a great tool to take a look at how your system's performing, basically real-time data. It has historical data usually as well. It's going to depend on the inverter company manufacturer. This one that I pulled a photo of an employee of ours, it was a SolarEdge inverter. So depending on the inverter you go with, it may look a little different, but it's going to have very similar information on it. Just so that you can keep an eye out on how it's performing. And I will say a lot of the companies also have phone apps that you can take a look at too if you're not home. And so we do have 2 campaign solar installers this year. We got Sunday Solar and we got Nova Solar. So they are part of the campaign this year. And I will mention Sunday's been part of previous campaigns in the past. This is the first time Nova Solar has been part of our campaign this year. But so far, doing a phenomenal job, and they've been around quite a while as well, so they definitely have the experience.
Hey, Brian, I'll just pop in for a second. I think we have Sam and Tim here from the 2 companies. Sam, do you want to just introduce Nova Solar, and then we'll let Tim say something about Sunday?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Sam from Nova Solar. We're a installer. We mostly install in Maryland, DC, and Virginia. I've been personally installing for Nova Solar for 4 years, PMing for about 2. And, it's been amazing, the growth in solar in the region, and the way that, system sizes and things like that have developed. It's been really cool to see the technology improve, and, and it's exciting to be part of the Solarize program for the first time. Thanks, Bree.
Great. I think, Tim, are you out there? Are you able to unmute? See you going in and out of mute. Tim, are you there?
Yes. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tim. I do technical design at Sunday Solar. We're proud to be partnering again with PEC and with LEAP. This is our 3rd year winning the contract, the bid for Solarize campaign, and we just really like to be your conduit for PV information. And we really like it that we've really leaped forward with LEAP to get some more solar on more roofs in Central Virginia.
Awesome.
Right.
And then I think that's the point where we've just kind of, Ryan, thank you so much for running through the basics for everyone. Hopefully we answered a few of those kind of upfront questions that were submitted, but I'm curious now, I'll turn it over to our webinar participants, see if anybody has a question to kick it off with. See who's brave. And if anyone is shy, don't worry, the chat works too. That's a great way to submit a question. It's possible, Ryan, that you just answered everything.
Quite possibly.
I have a question.
Okay.
I have a house and a barn, and they are on separate meters, and wondering about how the net metering works. The barn is the better location for the panels, but it has a very low monthly bill. So will net metering recognize the 2 meters and give me credit on the house, even if it is the barn meter generating the solar electricity?
I'd be happy to field that one. So what would happen is you would have your utility bill, and the net metering would still be credited to you, but it would be on the barn account. So you have a few different options. You can just utilize that through that account, and it wouldn't affect your bill on your home, but you would be seeing the benefits through the farm bill. Conversely, you could connect the farm to your home meter, in which case you could power both locations with a system. You could have panels positioned on the barn and on the house if that was necessary for the size of the system you needed to fully offset. So that would probably be what we would recommend is connecting the two and having one bill, 1 meter, and then you wouldn't have to worry about balancing anything out between 2 accounts or doing any spreadsheets or anything like that. It would be a very simple arithmetic done by the utility.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.
I'll take actually the easy one that just came through the chat, and I can't believe we didn't put this on one of the slides, but the deadline for this year's program. Actually, we kicked off the program mid-June, and so the deadline to sign up is August 31st. So again, all you're doing is doing that interest form that by August 31st, and then soon thereafter, you're going to want to send along the copy of your utility bills to Ryan after that kind of solar assessment is done. So August 31st. And then let's see, another question came in from Carla. She says, I'm a Dominion Energy customer. If my solar output is greater than my use, will I still get a bill for $10, $20 as fees each month? And you could probably tell from all of us nodding our head that the answer is going to be yes. Ryan or Tip, do you want to get into why?
I can let Tim answer a little bit more, but generally speaking, it's a connection fee, more or less, to support the grid a little bit more. I don't know, Tim, if you have anything to add on that.
Yeah, there's often riders.
Right.
So yeah.
So connection fees vary by your utility provider, and the connection fee, like Ryan said, is just a standard fee that you're getting charged no matter what, whether you're on the grid or not. Locally here, Dominion has one of the lowest standard connection fees that we see, just being $7 a month. And there are some higher connection fees out there. So even if best case scenario, your system is producing 100% of your electricity, it still shows your utility offset being, maybe 97, 98%, because you're still paying that some dollars a month. But, it's a lot easier to pay that, less to break a $10 bill on your bill every month than it is to, to be dishing out the $200, $300 a month, which is one great benefit of solar.
Yep.
So we had a question there about battery storage. So this would definitely be one for Sam or Tim, I'm guessing. Can you talk a little bit more about your customers' experience with batteries, what it takes to add batteries? Are these all battery-ready systems you're installing?
Happy to go first. So we generally prefer to install microinverter systems. Microinverter systems, well, there are some technologies being introduced that allow a microinverter system to function with battery storage, but they're very expensive and they're kind of in their infancy. So if you want battery storage, generally you have to switch to a string inverter system. The string inverter delivers the DC power directly to the battery in the inverter, and that's how that sort of storage works. Battery costs are significant, so if you wanted to add batteries to your system, it would be right now it's at least $8,000 for us to add a battery. It really depends on what you're looking at. Like a Tesla Powerwall is pretty expensive, but they are the best batteries in the business. And they also can't necessarily offset, more than a few hours of your usage. So right now we kind of push customers away from batteries because we don't think the technology is where it needs to be to make it financially worthwhile. But it's getting there. The tech is evolving incredibly quickly, and as more and more people get interested in it, there's more incentive for companies to invest in the development. So, in Nova Solar's opinion, we are on the cusp of being at the point where batteries make financial sense, but right now we just don't advocate for them really.
Tim, do you have something to add on that? What's your approach to batteries?
We do prefer to install optimizers and string inverters. So there's a really easy option with SolarEdge, which is one of our optimized systems, to add a battery-ready inverter. If we see the battery prices in the future are projected to sort of take a drop, lots of money's being put into research and development for batteries at the moment. So lots of our clients who aren't quite ready to make the step to the battery are able to install a battery-ready inverter. Then with that battery-ready inverter, which is really a nominal fee on top of the cost of a regular inverter, your system functions perfectly as a non-battery system. And then when that time comes that you want to install the battery, it doesn't seem as painful because you're just installing one small piece of equipment or one piece of equipment on the wall, and then all of a sudden you have battery power.
Okay. I see another question about an easy one that I can tackle, logistical one about will a copy of these slides be posted? And absolutely, this entire slide deck will go up on our website along with the copy of the recording, but we'll embed the slide deck as well. Another question came in about somebody who has a fairly steep roof, so a steep slope. Is that a deal breaker, they ask?
Absolutely not. Standard install safety equipment is adequate for pretty much any slope.
Another logistical question. So all you have to do by August 31st is express interest, no other commitment. That is correct. No other commitment is required other than filling out that sign up form and being really interested. I mean, these are real businesses, so you don't want to waste their time. But at the same time, the installers are there to give you a proposal and put something in front of you and work with you on that proposal. So it might be, there is no commitment up into the point that you sign on a dotted line on a contract. So, do we have any other? Let's see. Does Rappahannock Electric participate in net metering? So if you're an electric cooperative customer, are you going to be able to do this? Tim or Sam? I guess the answer is yes. So, but do you have? Are there anyone who can't do this? I think that you've come across who can't go ahead with a solar?
No, net metering is pretty much ubiquitous across the utility companies in Central Virginia. We've seen in some Western states that they're starting to do away with net metering. Luckily, the clients and our clients who are currently contracted with net metering, are always grandfathered in. So there have been programs like net agricultural metering aggregation, where you're able to question before about how you have certain meters, you're able to lump a lot of meters together into one. So if you're into these programs, once you get into them, then they can't take them away from you. You sort of are grandfathered in. And let's see here, what other question? There was a question about, oh, I'm so sorry. Let me see here. The steep slope behind the house, was a steep slope not on the roof, but a steep slope of the ground. So our modeling program is able to take the topography of the land and use that as well to determine, is enough sunlight going to hit this roof section to make it a positive return on investment for our clients that we're designing for. Another question was about incentives for commercials. Installations. So in Charlottesville especially, there's great incentives to install for commercials, and we see that the return on investment comes down to maybe less than 5 years, and you have a positive cash flow. You can see a positive cash flow just in the first year, and that's thanks to LEAP offering, in some cases, zero interest solar loans, bless their hearts, as well as you're able to claim depreciation on your system from a tax standpoint. I'm not particularly allowed to give tax information. I'm not sure, or tax advice. I'm not sure if you want it from me, but I can tell you that in the past, clients have been able to use a 20% depreciation on their systems for business purposes, as well as some of our larger clients have been able to take REAP grants. So there's a Renewable Energy Action Program put out by the federal government. I'm sorry, rural energy, that allows grants to be taken from the government from the federal government for maybe up to 20% of the total system cost, free money. So there's lots of great reasons why commercial installations really make a lot of sense for business. It plans on being there for at least 5 years, which I think we all hope that you are.
Okay, and it seems like that we had that initial shyness that happened where there weren't any questions, and now we've had a complete onslaught. So I'm doing my best to work my way through these questions. I apologize if we miss any. There's an earlier question from someone who's having difficulties with their HOA and saying that they don't allow solar, and wondering a little bit more what can be done about that. Wondering, that may be a good one, Christian, I think is the person's name, for you to follow up with Ryan and myself after the call, like shoot us an email and get in touch, because it might be something where one of us could certainly do a presentation or talk with someone, or just kind of learn a little bit more about your specific circumstance. So so Christian, when you get that follow-up email from us, maybe continue that conversation. Chris, I don't know, from Chris Meyer from LEAP, if you have any comment on the world of HOA restrictions.
Yeah, I'll just say there's a lot of different angles, and again, we just did a report on this, so we would probably need to know your unique situation, and then again, we can talk about potential solutions. So, but unfortunately, yes, it's a problem in some cases.
Okay, so I think part of it is just kind of learning a little bit more about the specific circumstance. Let's see, moving down. I don't know this, are the contractors Pearl certified so that we can get our system certified as high performing assets? I'm not familiar with that phrase. Do any of the installers know what that means?
That's a new one to me.
I know a little bit, so I'll just chime in myself. So Pearl is an organization that helps basically give a certification to a house on how energy efficient it is. Actually, the founder of Pearl was one of the directors and founders of LEAP back when it started. So she went out and started Pearl to give certifications to homes. I haven't seen a lot of movement in Virginia on Pearl. That's why I believe they moved out west to possibly Colorado within the last few years. So I don't think any of the solar installers we've worked with have actually worked directly with Pearl, but I'm sure it may be something that Pearl may want to reach out to the contractors about. So potentially.
Then another question from someone, from Lisa, asking about EMF levels, if anybody knows anything about whether solar on the roof increases EMF levels in the house. It's not something I've read anything about or heard anything about. Ryan, Sam, Tim, or Chris?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about it. You have electricity moving through wires above your home, so you would think there would be some level of EMF, increased EMF, but I haven't seen anything regarding those levels being dangerous, or even if they are present or not, if it is actually increasing EMF levels.
Okay. Another question from Sandra. On a metal roof install, do you connect to the standing seams or put holes in the roof? I have a phobia about putting holes in my roof, which may be covered by a panel.
If you have standing seams, we connect to the standing seams. Otherwise, corrugated metal roofs, you would have an attachment that would have penetrations in the roof.
Okay. We have a question. Could Sunday clarify what kind of inverter they use for a battery ready system?
For a battery ready system that does not have a battery hooked up currently, we usually would push for, or we would suggest to use a SolarEdge StoreEdge 7.6 kilowatt battery ready hybrid inverter. We really like SolarEdge. They've been in the game for 10 to 12 years, and we've installed lots and lots of their inverters, and we have lots of happy clients with their battery ready systems.
Okay, great. This is a kind of a fun question. I haven't seen this one before. What about keeping them clean? We live near a railroad. There's probably a lot more grit than in some other places.
Modern panels are largely self-cleaning, so as long as you get rain, generally you're going to have all the grit and grime washed right off the panel. However, if you do see soiling, you can manually clean the panels, which might involve using a hose or a brush or something like that. But for the most part, they keep themselves pretty clean.
Okay, there's just a few more questions coming in, and it looks like we're pretty much on track to wrap up in the next 10 minutes. And I'm guessing some folks have probably already departed, but if you hang with us for a little bit longer, I think we're going to be done pretty soon. Here's another question about return on investment assessment. So when you guys are putting forward a proposal, do you include some basic ROI calculation?
Yeah, we include a ROI calculation on all of our proposals. It's based on your usage versus the projected production of the installed system.
Tim, I'm guessing you all similarly, there's some sort of ROI built into those.
Right. On a standard proposal, you'll get an ROI based off of the generating power of the system. Also, that ROI can be calculated within financing options, and that's standard on all of our proposals.
Okay, and then we've got a question about state incentives for going solar, which is kind of a sad one in that we do not unfortunately live in a state with a state tax credit at the moment. We're relying on that federal tax credit. There are some local incentives. So I think on our website, and I think on the LEAP website, there's a list of some counties that offer kind of a reduction. I forget if it's a reduction in your property tax assessment, I think, but nothing, unfortunately, from the state level. And then the question of any chance of that changing, I think we're ever optimistic, and that's something that we're definitely pushing for at the state level, and would like to see, particularly as the federal tax incentive seems to be phasing away or maybe disappearing. It would be a really big, there could be a really large gap there that the state could step in on. At least that's my opinion.
Bree, this is Chris, real quick. Just for everybody, the whole idea of net metering, so that when you sell power back to the grid, of course, normally the grid operator is buying power at a wholesale rate, so about half the retail rate. So the ability for you to actually sell power back to the grid at the retail rate, to a certain extent, some people consider it a subsidy. And luckily, in this last legislation section, they actually guarantee that, though, for the next, I think, to whenever. So, and that was always up in the air a little bit. And in many states, unfortunately, the legislators have changed it where you're not able to do net metering, and thus aren't getting kind of like a subsidy, basically. So it's very indirect in that sense, but unfortunately, no, there's, like Bree said, there is no state incentives to install or anything like that.
Okay, I'm starting to think we're largely through the questions there. Chris, did you ask your own question?
Well, so this is a little, and I'm sorry, I say this for the end, but I don't know if Sam or Tim have thought about this much, but the utility programs, at least for Dominion, have said that it's called the time of use, which again increases and there's a pilot program that's set up that could potentially really juice the returns for your solar system. I don't know if you guys have done much thinking about that. I just wonder, do you see an advantage for people who have solar systems to participate in that type of program? I guess, again, you have to be a Dominion customer, unfortunately, but that is the case for, I think, a lot of people in this, potentially on this call.
I was excited when I read that in the update as well. And that's when batteries actually have the potential for return on investment. With the time of use, then you're able to discharge your battery at certain times, so you can make your energy and then sell it when it's the most valuable. So our batteries don't have the best return on investment because they're kind of just sitting there waiting for an emergency. But then you can start to cycle those batteries and then really make the battery work for you and have the battery actually create a return on investment. So that's one thing I see being pretty handy with.
I think he got muted by his phone. Sam, what about you? What do you think about the time of use program?
I don't really know a lot about it, unfortunately, so I was just kind of leaning on Tim to provide a interesting answer.
Gotcha. We'll pause for a second. Tim might be back on that one. I think one of the things I would just encourage, there were a lot of folks on this webinar who were here to get information. I think you're kind of just trying to take that step. I think the best kind of information you can get is information that's tailored to your particular circumstance. And so, filling out that interest form, it does commit you to being interested, and you might get a phone call from one of these installers trying to schedule that conversation to get more about your particular circumstance, and you might get a bid at the end of the day, but it doesn't obligate you to do anything other than think about it at that point. But then you'll be thinking about it in the context of your own home, which is just, it's a lot more specific. And so I'd say if you're to the point of attending an hour-long webinar on the subject, take that next leap, get a bid for your own property. And then you can do with that information what you want. But that's kind of, I will push on that step being a really good one to take. I will say PEC as an organization, we're really committed to this stuff. The first Solarize campaign that we co-hosted with LEAP we filled out the sign up form for our headquarters building. And actually, until you get a proposal, it's hard to move forward with it, but we got that proposal. It was pretty compelling. And now we're on our 4th or 5th year of power production at our office, which is just a great step to have taken. We've got someone else, I think, on the call today who's a staff person at PEC, who is, he and his wife were the first people to fill out the Solarize interest form. And actually in 2015 got that residential system in their house. And I ask him every year kind of, you know, are you guys still happy that you did it? And every year it's a resounding yes, so glad we did it. So just, you know, fill out the form if you have a chance. Let's see. Yeah, and then that question, it's just a deadline for submitting the form. That's it, that's all it is. So again, I hope maybe after this webinar, we'll see a little flurry of interest and that it's something you feel comfortable sharing with friends, neighbors, family members. It's on the PEC website. It's on the Link website. It'll be on the email that we send you after this webinar. So we'll make sure that you can't avoid finding that sign up form. And again, just feel free, there's probably some questions we missed and I apologize, there were just a flurry of them coming in. So feel free to email after the fact, send us questions and we can, if we don't know the answer, we'll send them over to the installers who can tell us what we think on that subject. So again, we're I think right at the hour mark. Ryan, do you have anything, any closing thoughts?
No, I think we covered it all. Just want to thank you for putting this together and PEC be, you know, helping us get the word out to everybody. And we really hope that we can help at least inform people if they don't go solar or, you know, help them go solar. So.
Awesome. Thank you all. Bye.
All right. Thanks, everybody.